Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to do some reflection of my channel. It's nothing better than sort of looking through some of my videos and trying to figure out what the hell do people watch and why. It's interesting because of course I make content for BookTube and then I like to try to figure out sort of what sort of videos do people want to see, what sort of videos do I want to make, etc, etc. And I thought it'd be interesting to look at the top 5 most popular videos on my channel and try to figure out why they are the most popular videos on my channel. This was something I just happened to be looking at the other day when I was trying to figure out what sort of content to be making in the future. I was very surprised by the top 5 and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of just chat about it in a video. So what I've just done is I've just gone onto my profile and looked at my videos and I've just pressed sort by most popular. So that is most popular, i.e. like view counts. And I'm sure if I use YouTube Analytics, I can figure out different kinds of popularity on my videos and sort of engage with them in a different way. But this time I just want to do the most basic, the most simple, the quickest, and to kind of just figure out why some of them have the most views. So I think I have about 120 videos uploaded onto my channel. So of course, like the top 5 is a very small amount of all of my content. And I think the top 5 videos that I do have today are actually, they're all from 2 years ago or from the previous year when I was at kind of like the height of my BookTube creation. Obviously I fell out of that habit and now I'm trying to get back into it. But anyway, the 5th most popular video on my channel is one that's called Literature and Cinema, Thoughts on Books and Films. I think something like that. Here's the thumbnail. Now this video has 833 views and it is an interesting one. I think it kind of does make sense as to why this video is probably one of the more popular ones. When I created it, I very much created it with my own personal taste in mind. I like film, I like books, so I thought why not make a video talking about the relationship between books and cinema. And I did it in a way where I looked at some books that are about cinema, I looked at some books that had been adapted into films and what I thought of those adaptations. I talked about one book that was a novel in which the writer and the main character are filmmakers, and I talked about one book that I thought would make a good film. So it's quite an amalgamation of the entire kind of scope of literature and cinema, all thrown into one. And in the comments, the engagement with it was actually really great. And I loved the comments that were being shared. And it turns out, and this is probably why I appreciate that it's one of the more popular videos, that so many booktubers are also deeply interested in cinema. So there is definitely a link here. I guess it's all to do with storytelling and consuming stories, and there is like a close relationship between the two. So it makes sense that people who are kind of invested in BookTube are probably also interested in cinema and films and things. So it was really pleasant to make that, and it kind of broadened my own understanding of my own little corner of this community. So then the 4th most popular video on my channel is my top 10 books of 2018. Now this one also makes sense. I think when you're making BookTube content, there's some like real big heavyweight sort of contents that you can create, and the top 10 is always one of them, just because it's like it's a good old classic that you can't really go wrong with. At the end of the year, so many people on BookTube kind of create this list of the books that they've most enjoyed, their top 10, or however they want to measure that. And therefore, kind of, the relevance is high. It's always interesting to engage with other people to see what they've been reading and what they enjoyed the most. So this one for me makes perfect sense. It's got 888 views. It was also during like my peak of content creation. So the fact that it's 2018 books makes more sense because of course 2019 hasn't had as long to manifest, but also before I made that video I had taken quite a few months off of creating content, so I must have just fallen down in the visibility. But I'm pleased with that video. I'm pleased to see it in the top 5. And then the 3rd most popular video on my channel is a semiotic analysis of book covers, in which I looked at the fortunes, and I have just done an analysis of the semiotics of the images, what the images meant, how do we interpret the images, and how, like, you know, we each personally come to understand book covers from a semiotic perspective. This one, at first I was a bit like, why is this one? It's not one that I'm particularly proud of because I think the idea of it was that I wanted to analyse the cover and then read the book and then talk about the book in relationship to the cover, which I did. But I think the fact that I put them into two separate videos with quite a large gap in between, the second video kind of seemed a lot less relevant. It kind of just fell on the wayside a little bit, and therefore I think for me personally it kind of put a dampener on the first video. But also it's not really one that's like a typical BookTube content. It's not one that people really talk about. I think so many people will mention, oh, I love this cover, but it's not something we particularly analyse. And I have seen some videos kind of similarly, but from the perspective of the book designers themselves. So at first I was kind of like, I don't quite understand why this has done so well. It's got 1.1k views, and then I was thinking about it and looking at the comments that people have commented on it and sort of sussed out the audience and realised that actually a lot of the viewers aren't people who are interested in BookTube. I think a lot of the viewers are people who are studying semiotics, or maybe are new to semiotics and want to kind of learn a bit more about it. So they've probably done a search for that, found this video and, you know, used that as an example of how to do semiotic analysis. And I think that's something that is good to know about how far your content can reach and what kind of content reaches what kind of audience, and how your work can move beyond the traditional boundaries of BookTube. And it's something that I think I would be interested in doing more like that, and trying to suss out how I can retain a BookTube-esque channel yet push the boundaries of what my content is about. And of course I want to go back to doing some more semiotic analyses. I find it really interesting. And I've also developed my understanding of semiotics to a completely different way from back then, because of course I studied it more, I talked about it, I wrote an entire article about semiospheres, in which is like an abstract space in which semiotic understanding takes place in. And I think that'd be really interesting to talk about. So watch this space. If you're interested, let me know. And then the second most popular video on the channel, again, another surprise, it's my April TBR from last year. So in that frame, that makes sense. TBRs and wrap-ups and book hauls tend to be staple BookTube videos that do well. I mean, I'm reluctant to kind of give my opinion on why that is. Perhaps it's something to do with like easier access, because you're dealing with more books in less time and you're not kind of giving just one review, because I think people like to look at review videos of books that they've read or are intending to read soon, to help their understanding of that book in comparison to your understanding. So the TBRs particularly do well. This one has 1.3k views, and it's titled A Month of Italian Literature. Now that's kind of what throws me, is because why did this TBR become more popular than my other ones? I know that like my TBR for classics also did really well, which is indicative of what people who like my channel are more interested in. But Month of Italian Literature just seems so random. I think a lot of Italian people have actually watched that video, judging from the analytics and judging from some of the comments. It also happened to be at a time when I think I was engaging on Twitter and I was asking for more Italian female writers to read. And I got like a barrage of comments from really friendly Italian bookish people who were really keen to recommend some like fabulous writers. So I think maybe that kind of linked in with this video, and maybe it kind of, my presence seems a little bit more out there because there seem to be people engaging elsewhere, which brought them here. Either that, or people just really like Italy. People like Italian books. So this one, it's just a bit of a curveball. I can appreciate on the one hand as a TBR it's popular, but why specifically Italian literature? Who knows? And then we have my most popular video, which is the biggest curveball ever. It is the one that I would least expect. It's one that I thought would be my like least popular videos to date, and it's a review video. So first of all, review videos don't do that well. I've already talked about it. But second of all, it's Story of the Eye by Georges Bataille, and yeah, I just don't get it. I don't think that this isn't exactly a book that's talked about within the book community. I think people have read it. Some people might like hear about it on periphery, just because of Georges Bataille, who he is. But it's not one you particularly see people engaging with precisely. Yeah, this is the most popular video on my channel with 1.7k views. Lots of comments from people who don't regularly watch my channel, people who just like to say great review or oh, you've got a nice voice, it just seems very odd. The only reason that I can sort of justify why this might be the most popular is that perhaps people studied this book somewhere. I'm not entirely convinced they would have studied it within the UK context, because Georges Bataille would not come up in a UK educational background. I haven't really heard anyone who has studied English literature, you know, even up to university level, talk about this book. But people obviously have read it somehow. I appreciate that it's kind of a classic. It's a Penguin modern classic. But I don't feel like it's one of the big, heavy-hitting classics that everybody knows about. It's kind of one that I feel like goes under the radar. It's a very niche topic because it's basically a pornography. Maybe that's why. Maybe I just got a whole load of horny people who like to read erotic, yet kind of dark literature on my channel. This one just stumps me. I don't get it. I'm very happy that people watch that video and like that video. I feel quite proud of that video. I think it was quite early on when I was trying to experiment with different ways of doing book reviews on YouTube. So I did a lot of editing and I'm very happy with how it turned out. It's not something I would probably make now. So there's that. But it's just such a random video. Why do people like that one? And why, like, it is so strange that I can review books that are unknown, people, and they don't really get any views at all. I can review books that people are talking about elsewhere on like the bookish channels, that kind of just do okay-ish. And then I talk about this one book and suddenly the audience of that video grows tenfold and comes from places that aren't even BookTube. And I think that's something that's really interesting about these 5 videos in general, is that I'm not convinced most of the viewers are actually BookTubers. I think a lot of them are people who come from elsewhere with different interests, and that the search engine points them to these videos through some of their keywords or through linking to other videos like semiotics, film and literature, Italian books, I don't know. Who knows? And I appreciate, at least with the top 10 of 2018, that video can be very easily visible. People might be searching for like top 10 books to recommend, or you know, top 10 books to buy at Christmas, or top 10 books to buy after Christmas, etc. So that kind of, it still makes sense that perhaps not all of the viewers are going to be BookTubers. And then you come across the Story of the Eye review, which just leaves me stumped. But it's interesting to think about your channel in this way. It's something that I am trying to engage a little bit more, and it's something I'd love to be in conversation with you guys about. What would you like to see, basically? What are your favourite videos on my channel? Why? That's the question I want to ask people. Why do you like this video? But then also, what videos do you prefer watching on other people's channels, etc, etc. I do think I want to kind of grow my channel a little bit more, especially now that I'm getting back into content creating. And of course I have multiple interests that I want to kind of put into my channel, but I'm still not entirely sure how I want to do that yet. Also, there are so many videos that I put in so much editing to, which just get no views whatsoever. Not bitter or anything. Anyway, I shall leave it at that, and I shall see you another time for another video. Bye bye.